Very well, thank you for sticking around with us. You can always be a part of this conversation on different platforms where you're watching us from. Could be YouTube. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Smart24 TV. Also, Twitter, we're lively streaming around Instagram at Smart24 TV. I'm Rita Cabanyoro. Always catch me up on social media platforms around there. Joram Paul Sonko as well.
On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Do you also go live? Have you ever been live to any of these social medias?
Not really.
Because social media is one of the factors why, you know.
The best I've done is I've had a number of successful spaces on Twitter. A couple of 3. The fourth one completely failed. I was there alone. But the others had some good turn up of around 35 to 40 people. So the growth in social media is very important for anyone out there to understand how best this can be done.
Okay, and speaking about social media, it has done also a very great role towards improving maybe the standards on how we live, but with a contradiction message at some point. But also it has very well helped into the reach of our vaccination programs. It has helped onto our health reach. We have seen how different ministries, were, especially Ministry of Health, was streaming towards the campaigns on social media for COVID-19, vaccination, treatments, and also maybe testing. So it very well drives some campaigns to a success. And speaking of vaccination and Ministry of Health, we'll be also looking at how production of vaccination or vaccines in Uganda is faring. But before we head there, just briefly, what has been your observation since COVID-19 started? Joram Paul Sonko, share with us what you have been able to see from the people. You have interacted with a lot of people towards vaccination process, towards COVID-19. How has, you know, the journey so far, how is it ongoing from, you know, a journalistic analysis?
Okay, well, let's try to also look at it in this way. The innovations that have come up during COVID. COVID has brought about a number of innovations from many Ugandans. Okay. Because at least we were home. Most people were home mainly because away from the essential workers and all. Most people were home, and at the time you wouldn't want to have your mind idle. So you had to think of something. You had to think greatly. So that is when we actually got COVIDX, the local hub. So among the key observations I've realized is that we've received a lot of money during COVID. If the numbers are right, we've been receiving a number of grants, funds, donations from the vaccines. We've received, even before the vaccines came in, we were receiving a number of donations from the masks back then, the sanitizers. We remember,
that was when was it called? How was it called? COVID-19 task force.
Or, with the office of the Prime Minister. Bebali performed during that time. So more so in 2020. So at the time, all those things have been coming from funding. But what we need to also get to understand is that during COVID, Mubadde sent.
Exactly in the essential workers, because you know some essential workers
coming in to support.
Okay.
The task force. This task force was put in place to make sure that we try to survive during the pandemic. So there has been money in there, though not all Ugandans have benefited from it. Because as the government has been trying to make sure that it provides accordingly, though in the long run things have not been moving on. So when we look at the situation of the production of vaccines, this has also been in there, but it is going to also focus on more vaccines, because they do believe that COVID-19 has created room to show that in case we get into a certain another break out of a disease or a pandemic, how are we going to survive if at all we can't manufacture our own vaccines that can help us cope with the situation?
But also we are catching up the vaccines regarding COVID-19. How about, because uncertainties will always be uncertain, unpredictable, nothing will happen that you know prior, nothing will come to you and warn you like, hey, I'm going to come. So COVID-19 surely happened, but after all the reactions, there is always a starter at some point who, you know what, started a vaccination program. Like, okay, we need to develop a vaccine. Did Africa, especially Uganda, pick up so quickly and faster? What do you have to say, you know, on the quick peak of, you know,
well, when it comes to the COVID response, we tried to pick up, we picked up quite earlier, though when it comes to vaccination in general, production of vaccines, we have delayed to pick up from there. And not only Uganda, but most of the African countries, because it is rare to find African countries trying as much as they can. I think one of the most countries, if you look at the African countries that are very serious when it comes to research in medicine and in the health sector, is Nigeria, having the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, yes, in Nigeria. So they've always moved on to try and see that they contribute to how they can mitigate the effects of such either pandemics or diseases. So I think for the COVID response, it was very quick because we were still in shock, but our scientists tried to see how best can we live with this, which treatment can we come up with. And Dr. Ogwang also came up with this local COVID, and it actually proved to be also very important.
Somehow effective to curb a little bit of, you know, the symptomatic ways on how you're feeling, flu-like symptoms around there. But that said, we're going now to look at how about 7 billion shillings has so far been invested into the project of the production of vaccines in Uganda. This is all said by Dr. Musenero, the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. She also updated the country on the progress of producing locally made COVID-19 vaccines, saying that they have so far invested around 7 billion into the project. Let's have more on this. We do return to discuss with us.
Vaccines prevent up to 3 million deaths annually in infectious diseases. Before COVID-19, Africa did not have any capacity for the entire vaccine manufacturing value chain and contributed only 1% as fill and finish by a few entities in Northern and Western Africa.
The vaccines that we use on the continent, just by doing what we call fill and finish.
According to Dr. Musenero, the African continent is the biggest consumer of vaccines made globally. Even before COVID, 1.3 billion doses of vaccines are consumed annually, and 25% goes into the African population.
I would like to bring to your notice that African continent is the biggest continental consumer of vaccines made globally, even before COVID came. Before COVID, there were 1.3 billion doses of vaccine used annually, and 25% of that goes into the African population.
Uganda has so far vaccinated approximately 15 million people against COVID-19, with 13 million having received their first jabs. 2 million Ugandans have so far received their second, and only 14,265 have received the booster jab.
Uganda has vaccinated approximately 15 million people against COVID. First dose, 13 million. Second dose, 2 million. And the booster dose, 14,265. For us to protect the country and keep the economy always open, we will need to vaccinate at least 70% of the population. And if you calculate we are about 44 million, we are still pretty low on coverage.
In the financial year 2020-2021, Preside has so far funded 23 projects. Out of these projects, 4 were for vaccines. The scientists have made tremendous progress over the past 4 months amidst delays in procurement and funding.
Has since supported the scientists working on the vaccine projects in three different technological approaches. Beyond that financial support, Preside ensures that there is national and international coordination of the local vaccine research and development process. Vaccines are delicate drugs. You don't just wake up alone, make it, and it is accepted. So Preside is coordinating with the World Health Organization, with the National Drug Authority, with the Bureau of Standards here. But not only so, we are helping to coordinate with people who bring in the machines that we need.
On the issue of the 31 billion shillings funds that were released by government, about 7 billion shillings were used to inject in the production of vaccines, and this, according to the minister, is where most of the funds were utilized.
Very well, that is it on how far we are walking along the vaccination project around the country with producing our own vaccines. So far, 7 billion injected.
Report by Monica Navionga coming in here. When you look at the details that are coming up, vaccines prevent up to 3 million deaths. That is according to the reports coming in, that is on the African continent, that vaccines prevent up to 3 million deaths annually. Not only COVID-19 vaccines, but vaccines in general that have been put in place to prevent different diseases. And they also prevent infectious diseases. And before COVID-19, Africa did not have the capacity
to cater for their own vaccines.
The entire vaccine manufacturing value chain, and contributed only 1% as fill and finish by a few entities. It was only the northern and the western part of Africa
that would
like
at
Nigeria,
least try to get vaccination programs. And according to the minister there, you will agree that Africa is most of the consuming continent from, from other continents, well-established continents. We mean the American continent and the European continent. We tend to consume a lot from them.
We don't even have where to manufacture from.
But at least now with COVID-19, I mean, initiatives came along with the help even from CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control. At least it has got branches operational in most of the African countries. By the way, it has helped a lot towards trying to curb and making sure at least there is an integration of awareness towards vaccination, even the right vaccine. Sometimes, from the little science, I tend to borrow now from the scientists that have been talking about vaccines. It doesn't matter that kind of, because we are all having one blood. Isn't it red? Is there any human being with a greenish blood?
I've only seen that in movies only.
So
alien movies, when we are seeing green blood.
So if a vaccine can work onto a British, it can work on the American, on maybe any South African, it can really generate across. That means it can work.
Medicine.
Yes, that means it is designed for a human protocol, a human being, and like if you're going to be sharing it with maybe a particular animal. But away from that, we are all meant to share the same vaccine. So, the argument around vaccination around the country, when it had just, the program had just been rolled out around the country, most Ugandans, you will agree with me, some would urge that we're drawing an argument that, hey, they're bringing us vaccinations or vaccines from America, but we're not Americans. They have made American vaccine. We're black people. I mean, it's not going to work on us. But hey, and science has proved to see that, hey, we're all human beings with one, blood, red. And hormones, our hormonal function or functionalities rotate around at least one bit of scientistical element. That means that we're good to go. So an argument there at least was sorted, but still on vaccination rollout programs around the country are still behind. When you look at the reports, the responses the ministry has got, very well, the push has been ongoing quite faster, advocating for these programs, but the move for individuals to access, especially if you're not in the categories that were not mentioned earlier, around the teachers, doctors, elderly, people tended, to relax and say, hey, I can do without the vaccination or I can do without the vaccine.
And when you look at this, even the reports coming in from Uganda is that we have so far vaccinated approximately 15 million Ugandans. And
our
out of
target
this,
was 22 million Ugandans by 2020. By 2020, this year is what? 2022.
2022.
Yes, by 2022. That is around the last month of the year, around October 2022. The country is, maybe the target is still, by the way, visible.
But when you look at this, out of the 15 million, though, 13 million have received their first jab. That is the first jab. Then 2 million
have completed.
So you've seen 13 people, then that means 11 million.
Not
this is according to Dr.
13 million.
13 million, not 13 million. So this means out of this, we have 11 million who haven't received
their second jab.
Then out of this, we have 14,265 who have received their booster jab. That also
Immune
inclusive
booster.
of the president as well, who also received this booster jab.
But again, on that 14 million, you have to remember that when after your 2
15.
vaccinations, after your 2 jabs, right? That's when you get a booster. That's
After
when
the
you
2
get
jabs,
a
yes.
booster. So a booster, it's okay. But again, on the vaccination program, why is it low? At least some during Christmas time, you know, there was a lot of pressure. People had spent almost 2 years without having holidays with their families, and there was pressure on different roads where I don't know if you saw reports indicating how people were being
Lining up for vaccines.
yes, from the transportation,
No, even along Entebbe Road, you could
buses.
see people.
So police stops, and you know, when you're not vaccinated, go around there. It was what I could say, it wasn't by force. At least I like the fact that the police would try to explain and get that rudeness, that hard heart out of you, and you know what, and say, okay, I mean, if Sonko can just get out, let me also just follow and go. So that was a good one, and it also helped to move the vaccination campaign. But regardless of that, we still have unsettled, you know, issues around maybe COVID-X. It tended to be silent at some point. If you remember, the hike at which, or the pressure at which the complaints were raising on COVID-X copyright and COVID-X treatment there. There is a lot that happened there, but now it sees the fire on.
I believe it was because the only challenge is Ugandans always seize opportunities. And for example, now look at the situation. COVID-X was there, and we all knew that it can help, it is effective in trying to control COVID-19. Then, because they're business-minded and people, the entrepreneurs, and we normally tell people we are here to drive your business, but sometimes Ugandans drive their businesses too far. And it's, I don't know whether it's overloading or overspeeding.
Okay.
Most of these Ugandans, abagezigeze nnyo baali batandise ndowooza okucupula their own COVID-X Pro Max, COVID-X Extra, you know, all that. Imagine someone giving, and others, I do believe others could just put maybe their own doses and get a sticker COVID-X.
But the issue of
at a very huge
vaccination has
price.
really come with a lot of challenges around this economy, Uganda, because at least over 800 people were vaccinated with vaccine water vaccination.
Including those working for very well-established companies as well.
And this was happening in an ignorance part of it, because there was a lot of pressure on vaccine. If you're to remember the move of vaccination as it had started
And
coming,
even the businessmen were very sharp
a lot
at the
of
time.
players came in around, and you know, decided to offer, because organizations would just book, like Smart 24 TV, for example. You book maybe a certain entity to come and, you know, vaccinate your people, because government was telling you have to at least vaccinate a certain percentage, you know, of your workers, of your employees, if you're to greatly work effectively. And this ended up to fall for fake vaccination programs. That makes us learn that in every uncertainty, in every situation, never take just advantage of, you know, anything that crosses around, because some may be fraudity, some may be very well effective, but at some point always be sensitive of what is coming your way. You remember how people were also Baba Feda is called what? Fraud.
Fraud.
Yes. Fraud around COVID-19 was very great. There was fraud on the road, police officers. Abamba fed to be police officers. We were reporting those cases around Smart 24 TV, whereby you get a roadblock. Because some people yes, they tended to to be operating SOPs, so a lot came along there. But at least we have learned our lessons. I believe you have learned, at least walked away with the pandemic uncertainty. And now what we're focusing now on is how to reboost that collapsed business you had, to make sure you reboost the business you had, to make sure you come from where you were sleeping. Why are you laughing? You wanted to start at Pechapati. During COVID-19, just a reminder, you were highlighting for us to start a chapati business, because a lot of SMEs, when we were trying to relate with people by that time, they wanted a way on how at least to put, even if it's small startup. And Sonko here is one of them.
Haven't you heard of the saying that most of our businesses...
So have you moved on, or have you started that?
I haven't moved on and I haven't started, but I'm still hopeful that it will happen. Now, on the issue of why I was laughing at the SOPs, I've just remembered a school requirement receipt that I've seen sometime, where I saw some time back, and the school was asking for 100,000 to implement SOPs. And in brackets, they had to put sanitizing, social distancing, and then hand washing. So you have to pay 100,000 for that. And I was like, wow, Ugandans know how to make money.
There's a lot of schools squeeze us on certain situations, but also they had to also take good advantage of this situation. We'll be taking a break, and surely do not go away, because we have got an analysis coming up next after the break. Stick around with us. We continue to drive business together.